So let's start. Number 10, the razor dust. The moon is trying to kill you with dirt and it looks completely harmless from a distance. Moon dust is nothing like dust on Earth. Here, particles get worn by wind and rain over thousands of years until their edges round off. The moon has none of that. No atmosphere, no water, no erosion of any kind. When a meteorite strikes the lunar surface, it shatters rock into fragments so small they become airborne, and those fragments never get worn down. They stay razor sharp at a microscopic level. Edges your eyes cannot detect, but your lungs cannot survive. Think of freshly broken glass, then shrink those shards to a size you could inhale without noticing. That is what moon dust actually is. The Apollo astronauts discovered this the hard way. The dust worked into the seams of their equipment, abraded the coating on their helmet visors, and cut through the material of their boots. Not over weeks, but over hours of surface exposure. The particles are also electrostatically charged, which means they bind to every surface they touch and do not release. You cannot brush them off, you cannot rinse them away. The astronauts described the smell of lunar dust they tracked inside the module as burned gunpowder, sharp and chemical, like the air right after a weapon fires. What they were actually breathing were fractured silica glass particles. Once inside the lungs, those particles do not come out. The human body has no mechanism to expel something that jagged. It embeds in tissue, it tears, the damage accumulates over time with no recovery. NASA engineers have identified moon dust as one of the primary unsolved problems blocking any permanent human presence on the moon. Every proposed solution creates a new failure elsewhere. The dust penetrates filtration systems, seizes mechanical joints, and degrades the air recycling equipment that keeps a crew alive. The Artemis program teams have been working this problem for years. They have not solved it. The moon's surface looks still and silent in every photograph ever taken of it. What you're looking at is a layer of microscopic blades covering every square meter of ground, and nothing about it is safe. Number 9, the shrinking brain. An astronaut returning from 6 months in orbit does not come home the same person who left. The change is physical, measurable, and partially permanent. Gravity does more than keep you on the ground. It organizes your body. When it disappears, the fluids inside you redistribute upward. Astronauts in orbit describe a constant pressure in their heads, like hanging upside down that never stops. A sensation that does not fade over the entire mission. That pressure is not just uncomfortable, it is structural. The cerebrospinal fluid that normally cushions the brain shifts position, and the brain itself floats higher inside the skull. Over months, that shift causes measurable physical changes to brain tissue. Researchers studying astronauts who completed long-duration missions found that specific regions had compressed and changed shape. The white matter tracks, the internal wiring carrying signals between different parts of the brain, showed deformation that did not reverse when the astronauts returned to Earth. After 6 months aboard the International Space Station, some astronauts showed up to a 3% reduction in volume in targeted brain regions. That sounds small, it is not. 3% of a brain is significant tissue loss. The cognitive effects were documented: slower processing, difficulty with memory retrieval, lower reaction times. Some of those effects persisted long after the mission ended and gravity returned. NASA is planning a crewed Mars mission. A round trip under current propulsion technology would take approximately 3 years, 6 times the duration of the missions that already produce confirmed brain changes. The crew arriving on Mars would be landing with brains physically altered by the journey. They would be managing life-critical systems, responding to emergencies, and making high-stakes decisions with cognitive hardware that is not the same hardware they launched with. Research into countermeasures is ongoing. No confirmed intervention exists. The Mars mission timeline does not wait for this problem to be solved. Number 8, the particle barrage. Right now, without warning or sensation, high-energy particles are passing through your body, through your skin, your organs, your skull, and through the neurons firing inside your brain. These are cosmic rays. They are not rare. Roughly 100,000 of them pass through you every hour. They originate from supernovae, from neutron stars, from the violent regions surrounding black holes, events that accelerate matter to within a fraction of the speed of light. By the time those particles reach Earth, they carry enough energy to interfere with electronics. Documented cases include smartphones rebooting without cause, aircraft navigation systems producing false readings, and satellites experiencing data corruption, all traced back to high-energy particle strikes. Your skull provides no more shielding than the plastic casing around a circuit board. Neither is designed to stop this. On Earth, the atmosphere absorbs a significant portion of incoming radiation before it reaches you. In orbit, that buffer is gone. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station report a phenomenon during sleep and in periods of darkness. Flashes of light with their eyes closed. Not dreams, not visual noise. Distinct flashes in the dark. What they are experiencing is a cosmic ray striking the visual cortex directly, activating neurons without any external light source. A particle passing through the brain and triggering a signal on contact. Consider what is happening in every other region of the brain those particles are crossing. Memory storage, emotional regulation, decision-making, Motor function? Scientists have proposed that some fraction of random cognitive errors, a word suddenly gone, a moment of inexplicable confusion, an unexpected lapse, may trace back to particle strikes disrupting neural activity at the cellular level. There is no material that stops high-energy cosmic rays. Lead stops X-rays. It does not stop these. A wall of lead several meters thick reduces the incoming count marginally. It does not end it. The particles moving through you right now have been traveling across the galaxy for thousands of years. Your body is the latest thing in their path. Number 7, the presence. Astronauts from multiple countries, multiple programs, and multiple decades have all reported the same experience in space. NASA kept the records classified for over 30 years. During extravehicular activity, spacewalks conducted outside the spacecraft or station, a consistent pattern appears across the documentation. It begins as a feeling of being watched, not vague unease, not the ordinary anxiety of working in a lethal environment. A specific, directional sense of attention from the void outside the suit. Then comes a shape at the edge of vision, a form that disappears the instant the astronaut turns to look directly at it. The reports are not identical in every detail, but the core structure does not vary. The sense of presence, the peripheral form, the disappearance upon direct observation. NASA's formal explanation is space adaptation syndrome, a cluster of neurological and psychological effects produced by the extreme conditions of orbit. Sensory deprivation, disrupted sleep, sustained stress, and the cognitive demands of operating in a pressurized suit at the edge of survivable conditions can all produce perceptual anomalies. That explanation is reasonable, it may be correct, but the documentation was classified, not filed as routine medical records. Classified, restricted from public access. Withheld for 3 decades, perceptual distortions caused by sleep deprivation and stress are not classified information. They are standard occupational health data. There is no legitimate national security rationale for sealing these reports. Someone sealed them anyway. The documents have since been partially released and the pattern became visible, but it has not stopped. New astronauts with no access to the older reports, no knowledge of what earlier crews described, continue to report the same thing. Same structure, same sequence. The peripheral form that disappears when looked at directly. NASA's position remains extreme environments produce perceptual anomalies. That may well be true. What is equally true is that someone in authority decided to classify these particular reports for 30 years, and that decision did not happen by accident. Number 6, the tunnel network. Something is beneath the surface of Mars, and its geometry does not match what geology should produce on its own. Ground-penetrating radar on NASA's Mars surface missions has mapped a network of subsurface tunnels running across significant portions of the planet. This alone is not unusual. Lava tubes exist on Earth and on the Moon, hollow corridors carved out by ancient magma flows, empty passages left behind when the lava drained. Mars was expected to have them. What the radar is actually showing is different in a specific way. The tunnels branch, they connect, the patterns they form repeat across separate regions of the planet with a regularity that natural geological processes do not generate. Natural cave systems follow the path of least resistance through surrounding rock. They are irregular, unpredictable, and non-repeating because rock is not uniform and the forces that shape caves are chaotic. What the Mars data shows is organized branching. Systematic spacing between connected passages, a repeating geometric structure appearing in multiple separate locations. That kind of consistency does not result from geological accident. It is the signature of infrastructure built to a pattern. The tunnels are also deep enough to provide real shielding from the radiation that currently makes the Martian surface lethal to unprotected life. Whatever exists inside them, if anything, would be protected from the solar and cosmic radiation that strips everything at the surface. Scientists working on Mars habitat planning have noted that these tunnels, if structurally sound, are ready-made corridors. No excavation required, no radiation shielding to construct from scratch, entry points and pressurization, and you have a functional shelter network. The engineering value is substantial. No confirmed geological process accounts for the regularity of the pattern. The working hypothesis is natural formation through mechanisms not yet fully understood. That hypothesis has not been proven. The tunnels exist. The pattern is documented. How it came to be here has not been explained. Number 5, the undetected rocks. NASA tracks roughly 31,000 near-Earth asteroids. That number is supposed to be reassuring. It stops being reassuring the moment you understand what it does not include. In 2019, an asteroid designated 2019 OK passed between Earth and the Moon. It was approximately 130 meters across. An object that size, striking a populated area, would level a major city and produce regional devastation well beyond the impact zone. Millions of casualties, entire districts erased, the landscape itself altered. NASA detected it 24 hours before closest approach. Not 24 days, not 3 weeks, 1 day at that point. No deflection mission on Earth could have been conceived, approved, launched, and executed in time to change its trajectory. The rock passed at roughly 1/5 the distance to the moon and continued on its way. The world found out after it had already gone. The reason for the late detection is geometry, not negligence. Asteroids approaching from the direction of the sun are invisible to ground-based observatories until they clear the solar glare. By the time they emerge into trackable sky, they are already close. Every object in the current catalog was found because it was observable from the direction it was coming from. Objects arriving from behind the sun are a structural gap in the detection system. That gap remains unsolved. For every documented asteroid in the catalog, scientists estimate a meaningful population of similarly sized objects in orbits that have not yet been mapped. Not because the instruments cannot find them, but because the survey is not complete. Programs like the Rewritten Observatory are expanding detection capability. Progress is real, but the rocks that have not been found yet do not care about progress on the ones that have. 2019, was not a theoretical scenario. It was a real object on a real trajectory, and the detection system had one day. The next rock that size may not miss. The catalog will not be finished before it arrives. Number 4, the Defiant object. Every planet in the solar system orbits the sun in the same direction, on roughly the same flat plane, like lanes on a highway, all running parallel. That alignment is not a coincidence, it is physics. The solar system formed from a rotating cloud of gas and dust, and everything that condensed out of it inherited that original spin. Every planet, every major moon, every significant asteroid in the belt is moving the same direction on the same flat disk. That pattern holds across 8 planets and billions of tracked objects. Then there's Niku. Niku is a trans-Neptunian object approximately 10 kilometers across. It orbits the sun in the opposite direction from every planet in the solar system. On a plane nearly perpendicular to the disk, everything else follows. Not slightly tilted. Not a minor deviation, backwards and vertical, relative to the entire architecture of the solar system. For Niku to have reached that orbit through natural gravitational processes, the probability is not low. It is functionally zero. The physics that govern how objects settle into stable orbits do not produce this result. Something would have had to redirect it with extraordinary precision, placing it into an orbit that moves against everything around it and cuts across the solar system's flat plane at nearly 90 degrees. What makes this harder to dismiss is that Niku is not alone. A cluster of objects shares this exact anomalous orbital signature. Not one misfit body. A group of them, all in the same impossible configuration, all doing what the solar system's own formation physics says should not be possible. One hypothesis under study is the gravitational influence of a large, undiscovered planet in the far outer solar system, the hypothetical Planet 9, whose mass could theoretically deflect objects into unusual orbits over extremely long timescales. That planet has not been found. The objects are there, their orbits violate what the solar system's own formation history predicts, and no confirmed explanation accounts for how they arrived where they are. Number 3, the living planet. K2-18b should not exist the way it does. The star it orbits fires enough radiation in its direction to strip a planetary atmosphere away entirely. Every predictive model built before the James Webb Space Telescope examined this planet described a barren, airless rock. Then the data came back. K2-18b has a thick, active atmosphere denser than Earth's, and regenerating faster than the stellar radiation can erode it. The planet is not losing its atmosphere. It is producing one faster than it loses it. The telescope detected the composition of that atmosphere by analyzing how the star's light changed as it passed through the planet's outer layers. Different chemical compounds absorb different wavelengths of that light, leaving a distinct fingerprint in the spectrum. The way a chemical dye changes the color of the solution it is dissolved in, each compound leaving its own unambiguous mark. What that fingerprint revealed was dimethyl sulfide. On Earth, dimethyl sulfide has one confirmed source: living organisms. Marine microorganisms produce it. Nothing else does under any condition science has documented on this planet. The detection does not confirm life on K2-18b. Scientists are precise about that distinction. A non-biological pathway producing dimethyl sulfide may exist under conditions that do not occur on Earth, but might occur on a planet 124 light-years away. That pathway has not been identified. What has been identified is a compound that, on the only world where life is confirmed to exist, only living things produce. NASA has made additional Webb observation time on K2-18b a priority above other candidate planets. The official language is measured and careful. The internal urgency behind those scheduling choices is not. If the dimethyl sulfide on K2-18b is biological, it means life is present in a system over 100 light-years away, surviving conditions that models predicted should make survival impossible, and actively maintaining a planetary atmosphere through biological output. Every assumption science uses to predict where life can exist and what it requires would need to be rebuilt from scratch. Number 2, the rewritten code. Scott Kelly and his twin brother Mark began a year-long experiment with identical DNA. They did not end it that way. NASA's twin study used the Kelly brothers as a matched scientific pair, one in orbit, one on Earth, to measure exactly what a year in space does to the human body at its deepest biological level. Scott spent 340 days aboard the International Space Station. Mark spent those same days at home. When Scott returned, the results went beyond what anyone in the program had predicted. His gene expression had changed, not marginally. Thousands of genes that were active before launch were behaving differently after he came back. His telomeres, the protective sequences at the ends of chromosomes that shorten as the body ages, had actually lengthened during the mission. That is the reverse of what aging normally produces. His body was simultaneously carrying markers of accelerated biological stress and markers that look like biological reversal, both running at the same time in the same cells. When Scott returned to Earth, most of the changes resolved over the months that followed. Approximately 7% of the gene expression alterations did not reverse. They stayed permanently. Scott Kelly returned from space as a genetically distinct person from the twin brother he was born identical to. 7% is not a footnote, it is a permanent molecular rewrite of who he is. NASA does not yet know whether those alterations are heritable. Children Scott Kelly could potentially carry genetic changes that originated in low Earth orbit. Every astronaut who has completed a long-duration mission has returned with some version of this same profile. The specifics vary, but the pattern is consistent. Extended time in space rewrites human DNA, and a portion of those rewrites do not undo. We are routinely sending people into an environment that edits their genetic code. We do not know what is being written. We do not know what it means for everyone who comes after them. Number one, the unknown organism. The International Space Station is one of the most controlled environments humans have ever built. Every surface is cataloged, every piece of equipment is documented. Every person who has ever lived there has been tested and tracked down to the genetic level. NASA knows exactly what is supposed to exist on that station. That is precisely what makes what they found in the air filtration system impossible to explain. Genetic material, unknown, not unidentified in the sense of a mishandled sample or a contamination error. Unknown in the sense that it does not correspond to any organism in any biological database science has assembled. It does not match any crew member. It does not match any piece of equipment. It does not match any known Earth organism, microbial, fungal, or otherwise. It is not in the catalog. It is something for which no classification exists, and it is not dormant. Whatever is generating this genetic signature is replicating. It is making copies of itself inside the station. It is growing. Because it is present in the air filtration system, it is moving through the air the crew breathes around the clock. NASA has studied how ordinary microorganisms behave in microgravity. Bacteria in orbit become more resistant to antibiotics, more aggressive, and harder to eliminate than their equivalents on Earth. But those organisms are known. They are Earth life behaving unusually. What is in the filtration system is not a known organism behaving unusually. It has no name. It has no match. It established itself in a sealed, pressurized habitat 400 kilometers above Earth's surface and is actively reproducing in that environment. NASA has made no public announcement. The sampling program has continued since the material was first detected, and each successive sample shows more of it present. Whatever this is, it has made the station its home and it is not leaving. A self-replicating, unknown, matching nothing science has cataloged, living inside the most monitored structure humans have ever built. Nobody has explained it. The samples keep coming back positive. That's it for this one. More is coming. Subscribe so you catch it. See you in the next.